Lodolo dazzled. Austin Hayes delivered big, and the Reds' winning streak, it just keeps right on rolling.
You are Locked On Reds, your daily Cincinnati Reds podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On Reds. My name is Jeff Carr. His name is Steve Offenbaker, and we are lifelong Cincinnati Reds fans. We've been podcasting about this team for a combined 14 seasons, and we're glad that you're alongside us here today. Locked On Reds is part of the Locked On Podcast Network. We are your team every single day, your Cincinnati Reds every single day. And on today's show, we're going to, at least a little bit later on, look at Alexis Diaz. Does he have trade value? I've actually gotten a few questions about that. We will discuss that. And we'll also discuss, is it time to send down Matt McLain? Well, quite frankly, Monday night proved yet again why you can't do that. We'll explain more a little bit later on as we replay some of the questions and answers that we had from our live show on Monday night. But we have got to start off, Steve, with this amazing performance, a complete win by the Cincinnati Reds, literally all facets. Look, we have complained multiple times this season when things are not working. Absolutely everything that the Reds had going worked on Monday night.
It was a textbook blueprint way to do it against a team that's not that good. You keep chipping away at it, and you're going to get an opportunity, and eventually they were able to break it open. I want to start with Nick Lodolo because, yes. It's easy to say, well, it's the Pirates. He's supposed to do that. There are some decent hitters in that Pirates lineup, and Nick Lodolo goes out, throws 6 strong innings, allows just 1 run, and he strikes out 7 guys, Jeff.
89 pitches, too. Yeah.
I like what we saw from Nick Lodolo. I like how he held up. I like how he didn't make too many mistakes. He bounced back from allowing that run in the first inning and just kind of went into cruise control after that.
I think Tito is starting to figure out how to manage this ball club, because he even said after the game, he was just like, man, there was a moment where I really thought about letting him go back out there in the 7th inning, but I just kind of felt like he was done. This was it. Let's move on to the bullpen. And he pulled the right strings out of the bullpen too, because none of the A squad was available, but the guys that he brought in did everything that he needed them to do.
Yeah, we saw the return of Lyon Richardson, who comes in with a strong inning of a work. He allowed a hit, but Lyon's doing really well. Small sample size, but ERA of 1.42. He's doing really well in that B group that we talked about that the Reds have between the A and the Bs. Then you get to Barlow, who you have hypothesized is expendable, but he comes out and has a clean inning, strikes out a guy, doesn't get into any trouble. And I know that's not fair. You have hypothesized that if room needs to be created, he might be a guy they use to make room to bring somebody up. IL with a case of I'm not as good as I once was. And I get what you're saying, but he comes out and has a strong inning of work as well. And then who had Brent Suter on their card for being the guy that closed out the game? First of all, I know it's wonky to look at relievers ERAs, right? But 1.75 here as we cruise through May is really pretty good. Clean inning of work for Suter. No runs, no hits, didn't walk anybody, didn't strike out anybody, but did his job. And the Reds get out of there with a 7-1 win against the team that they absolutely had to beat. We meant to talk about this in our live show on Monday, and we didn't really get there, Jeff. But, this team continues to frustrate me in how they always just play to the level of their opponents, right? The Cincinnati Reds needed to win the series against the Chicago White Sox. They needed to bank those wins. And then they turn around and sweep a Cleveland team that I thought they were really going to struggle against. And so as a Reds fan, of course, I'm like, well, now we're going to go get swept by the Pirates. That's what's going to happen. But the Reds didn't do that. They put together, and you look offensively, Jeff, I don't know which one of these guys you want to start with, because TJ Friedl had a multi-hit game. Elly De La Cruz had a multi-hit game. Austin Hayes, multi-hit game. Gavin Lux, multi-hit game. The offense was doing its thing.
No, and I think this is something that they've got to just copy paste what they did today. They didn't hit any home runs. They didn't have that one big inning that was like the first or the second inning. They scored 5 runs and then they didn't score again. Like, it was consistent hitting and scoring. They had opportunities. They took advantage of them. And then late, when you get into a Pirates bullpen that has struggled mightily, and they saw the 2 guys that have been struggling the most for them in David Bednar and Colin Holderman. You'll remember those days because a couple of years ago, that was the 8th inning guy in Colin Holderman and the 9th inning guy in David Bednar. Those guys are shells of themselves, and the Reds took every bit of advantage of them as they possibly could. But for me, I kind of want to start, and we did this on the live show where we, somebody asked us about Gavin Lux, and we're just like, why don't we talk about him enough? Let's talk about him for a minute, because he hit the go-ahead RBI in the 6th inning that the Reds never ended up looking back from. But he had a couple of really good line drives in this ballgame. Just missed a home run, too, on one of his outs that was a fly out to deep right center field. And his RBI double in the 6th inning gave the Reds the lead that they would not relinquish. He was every bit the part of the guy that people want to talk about in this.
Yeah, and that double you're talking about into the right center field gap, it was a thing of beauty. You could tell right off the bat that one was trouble. And that's the kind of stuff that he just goes out there and keeps doing. He's hitting 294 right now, Jeff. He's really just kind of doing what this team asks him to do when they need him to do it. And, I think we're going to find ourselves talking about Gavin Lux more and more and more. And, even though it wasn't a multi-hit game, your guy, Will Benson, that you've got the bumper car back out for the hype train. He did hit a double, continued his hitting streak, and looks really good right now. Looks really comfortable. I want to talk about Austin Hayes for a second, because my goodness, what a difference him in the lineup versus him not in this Reds lineup. He goes out last night, Jeff, 3 for 5, 2 RBIs, scored a run of his own, only strikes out 1 time. He's hitting 330 still, Jeff. He is doing all the things. We kind of criticized Nick Krall a little bit in the live show yesterday that people may hear a little bit more of here, rightfully so. But this is one of the moves I think he got right. This was a good signing. I don't know if I told you this, but when the Reds signed Austin Hayes, former Reds minor leaguer Spencer Stockton reached out to me, who had been a roomie of Hayes's along the way. And just the message I got from him was, you guys just got a good one. This guy's a good one. And
he is.
He is.
I mean, top of the first, he was the reason that the Reds got the scoring going. Well, he was half of the reason. The other reason was Elly was on first, and Elly did the thing that Elly does and scores from first. Like Tito said after the game, he's like, he's probably the only guy. He's like, no, he's not probably. He is the only guy in the league that can do that. And he had a nice night as well, did Elly, with a couple of hits and a couple of runs scored. But yeah, that RBI that Austin Hayes had at that point, and then you fast forward to the 8th inning when he was able to provide a little bit of insurance in that. I tweeted out at the moment, I was just like, Hayes insurance, better days ahead with Hayes. And I think that should be kind of the motto when it comes to Austin Hayes, because it feels like better days are ahead whenever he is in the lineup. Now,
it wasn't all guys in the batter's box, Jeff. There were a handful of just amazing defensive plays in that game last night. Steer made a great play. Espinal, Matt McLain, Santiago Espinal, all made amazing plays. And that has been where one of my pet peeves, one of my biggest complaints has been, where the defense has not been up to the level that I feel like it should be at, and the level that I feel like Terry Francona promised me that it would be at. And there has been improvement over the last week to 10 days of how they're playing defense and how they're positioning themselves. So I'm kind of excited to see them turn a corner defensively as well.
I want Monday to be the high watermark where it's like, all right, this is what Tito came to fix, and this is what it's going to look like moving forward. I'm not saying it's going to be every single game, but when the Reds are playing teams like the Pirates, whose fans, all 7 of them at PNC Park, were booing the crap out of them in the 8th and the 9th inning. When that is the situation, you do not give teams like that hope. You beat them down, and they did on Monday, and you do it again tomorrow, and you do it again tonight, and you do it again every time you face them, because these are the kinds of teams that the Reds are better than, and it frustrates us to no end when they don't beat them.
Well, listen, Jeff, we did a live show yesterday that had a comment section that was on absolute fire. Lots of great conversation, lots of great questions. And we're going to kind of drop that back in for the people that may have missed it live. Now, this is not everything from the live show. If you haven't been able to catch us live, make sure you're subscribed, notification bell. We're live on Mondays where we interact with you and take your questions and your comments. You definitely want to be around for one of those if you can. But coming up in the next segment, we're going to start with a little talk about Matt McLain, because there were some guys in the chat yesterday that said it's time to send Matt McLain down. We're going to talk about that coming up next.
You ever checked your bank account and been like, man, where'd that money go to? Monarch Money can help you out with that, because Monarch Money is this amazing website that can put all of your accounts in one place. That way you see everything that's going on, whether it's your debit account, whether it's your credit account, whether it's your investments accounts. You've got them all on one screen. You don't have to remember all the various passwords and different login information. I mean, I always get so confused with all that stuff. I'm glad my phone keeps some of that together, but Monarch Money can make it easy for you. You got one login, you got all your accounts and all that information in one place. It's really helped me switch from financially surviving to financially thriving and growing my portfolio. That's monarchmoney.com. Check out the website today and use the code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com to get 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Thanks as always for making us your first listen every single day. And shout out to those of you who are part of the Everydayers Club. If you're not in that club, hit subscribe today to make sure that you don't miss anything we've got coming for you, whether it's us or it's Tim Daniel on the Postcast Live at the end of every Reds game. We are always here talking Reds baseball with you, just like we did on Monday afternoon. Now, typically, we try to make it every Monday. There are some Mondays that get to us and we don't have this opportunity, but most Mondays we are live in the afternoon. And if you can be a part of it, you really should jump into the comments section, give us comments, give us takes and all that stuff. We love responding and talking baseball with you. We're going to replay a little bit of that Q&A session just in case you missed it. Got some great stuff about Matt McLain being sent down. Coming up here in a little bit, we'll talk about Alexis Diaz. Does he have trade value? We'll talk some trades. We're also going to talk some lineup decisions. And Yasiel Puig made an appearance, or the topic of Yasiel Puig made an appearance on Monday afternoon.
Yeah, so there was no bat licking on the show.
No bat licking on the show, no.
Alexander says if McLain struggles against the Pirates this series, he needs to be sent down to let him get it right. I just don't see how they send him down. I just don't see it.
It's been a struggle for sure, but if you look at, how he's been doing on a per game basis, yesterday was the first time he didn't get on base in 18 games. Sorry. He had a 17 game on base streak going into yesterday. So as much as the batting average isn't showing it, he still is getting on base 30% of the time. There's a split there of over 100 points comparative batting average on base. So when the batting average does get going, that on base might get close to 400. I still think that he's got it in him to really bounce back. He's hitting ninth tonight. I did see the lineup. He's hitting ninth. Tyler Stevenson's hitting eighth. So Terry Francona understands that these guys are struggling, and he's kind of bumped them down in the lineup as so. But I don't think you can take his glove off the field. Like, Gavin Lux is a fine second baseman. Matt McLain is an elite second baseman. And it's just he's not hitting right now. I think his bat's going to catch up pretty soon, though.
I think somewhere along the way last week I said make Matt McLain the ninth hitter and see if he could become the best number 9 hitter in baseball. I think I said that.
Yeah, that was that was a fun time in 2023 when we had about Will Benson. So maybe Matt McLain can take that over, at least for the short term.
Miss Nikita says that Matt McLain does need to get himself together, but at least his defense is solid. His defense is better than solid. I think I've said this before. I've had people in the building at Great American Ballpark tell me straight out that Matt McLain could go down when it's all said and done as the best defensive second baseman to ever play for the Reds. And that's saying a lot. That's saying a lot. So
considering all the guys, yeah.
And hear me, they said defensively. They didn't say the greatest second baseman ever. They said the best defensive second baseman. He's that good defensively.
I mean,
I think he's going to figure it out, but the chat's still talking about, does he need to be sent down? James is right. He's swinging at a lot of bad pitches. He's pressing, right? We see him pressing, but I don't know that sending him down fixes him. It's a different situation than it was with Will Benson last year. It's, could we get there? I guess we could feasibly get there, but the time for that is not now. You can't send Matt McLain down. I think he's going to come around. I want to ask you about another guy. I've seen his name come across the chat a couple times, and there was a conversation, so I can't go back and grab the one that will make sense. But have we been unfair in the amount we haven't paid attention to Gavin Lux? Are we unfairly ignoring Gavin Lux? Because I feel like we don't talk about him a whole lot, and he has just very quietly stringing together a pretty decent season. His OPS plus right now is 113. His slash line is running at 291, 379, 399. So he's not hitting for a ton of power, but other than that, he's been pretty consistent and he's had some pretty good at bats.
I think he is a really solid glue guy to have on your team, right? Like, I don't think he's ever going to be the guy that grabs the headlines, but he's always going to be that solid dude that's getting on base, right? I mean, the 379 on base is pretty awesome. Is slugging under 400, not great. But I think overall he is first team, and I said this the other day after he had a nice single, he's first team great piece of hitting. You don't say great piece of hitting about somebody that just hit the ball a country mile. You say it about a dude that hit a nice solid line drive for a single in a good moment. And I think that's who Gavin Lux is. And I think that both Gavin Lux and Santiago Espinal kind of feel interchangeable in that. I think Espinal is a little bit better of a glove than Lux is, and Lux maybe has slightly more power, but it's kind of, splitting hairs in that regard. But I think that ultimately Gavin Lux is a fine player. He's a guy that when we look back on the season, we're going to be like, he had a pretty fine season. But I don't know that we're going to have that game where it's just like, man, Gavin Lux took over. And he's had games where he's had multi-hits, or he's had games where he's gotten on base 3 or 4 times, but he's always the guy that's on base to be brought in. And I think, there's nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying that's bad, but he's not the guy that we're going to get excited about. We're just happy to have him on the team, though.
Where are you at on Santiago Espinal? There's been a couple of these in the chat. Trade Espinal right now while he's hot, basically. What do you think? Does he have any real trade value? He's on a bit of a heater. He's performed really, really well. They got him at, what did they get him at? 4 million, 6 million? I can't remember. I just know that you didn't want to pay the man. Yeah. You didn't want to pay the man, and I did, and I was right. So you enjoy your Will Benson hype train, but you're not the only one that's right around here.
I would like to point out that they had his arbitration much higher than what he's actually getting paid. So it was the arbitration value that I did not like. But so I think his arbitration was like at 6 or 7, and he got paid like 4. I'm like, oh, I'm fine with 4. No, I don't think there's a ton of trade value there. I'm not sure what you would expect to get from. I don't think it's a major league.
You wouldn't get a difference maker in return, right? That's the thing. Not a trade for the sake of a trade for Nick Krall to go out there and be, look, I'm doing things, by God. I traded Santiago Espinal. No,
trade for Connor Joe. That's not doing nothing.
Helps this team. That makes an impact.
But I think that
Santiago Espinal is not going to be an impactful trade.
But I also think that Espinal has a role on this team. His contact ability. Make no mistake about it. If you need a home run, you're not calling on Santiago Espinal. But if you need a single, he's your guy. And I think that is the kind of guy, and he can play defensively pretty well. At all infield positions. And God forbid, I didn't think I'd be saying this. He's not a horrible emergency outfield corner option. I think he's got a role.
Did that hurt?
Bench.
Did that hurt you?
Yes, it did. Because I didn't really want to ever think about him out there anymore. But that's where they've put this outfield thing. That's a point to the negative for Nick Krall, by the way. But no, I think that Terry Francona has found something with him, and I think that he's a gamer. You need gamers on your roster, and Santiago Espinal is a gamer. Gamers don't bring much in trade value, but they bring everything in daily value for a team.
I'm going to go to this comment from Shadow Falcon 77 next, because I know you, Jeff Carr, pretty well. And this, I'm not sure you didn't write this, actually, but here we go. Will Benson should and will get the Jay Bruce treatment from me. I'll defend him during his slumps because he can carry the team when he is hot. And I think Jeff Carr wrote this. I really do.
He does feel
really
like Jay Bruce light. Like,
I knew you would love this.
He's not. He's definitely dead on with what I've been thinking about him. It's just like, dude, like the streaks can be crazy awesome. And you just got to make sure that when he's on one of those streaks, you don't touch him. You let him play in the lineup, wherever it is in the lineup. Like, I'm okay with the fact that Tito put him batting 7th tonight. Like, as hot as he's been, you could make the case that maybe you move him up in the order to 5th, but how much of a difference does it make batting 5th and batting 7th? I don't necessarily know that that's worth a discussion, but I agree. I think it's the streaks. Like, you let him go when the streak is rolling, man. And then if the streak isn't rolling, then you play it a little bit more cautiously. But I don't think that Will Benson is who he was last year. I think there was some other stuff going on, and he just couldn't quite overcome it because, I mean, baseball might be the most mental game other than golf, might be the most mentally challenging sport there is. And it's possible he just wasn't ready to overcome that yet. I mean, remember, he's only, was it 26? Is it 26 or 27? 27. He's only 27 years old.
Yeah.
I mean, he's just begun his career. So I still think he's got a real shot to show that 24 was a super outlier and that he can be a very valuable part of this team. Like I said, 1.5 to 2.0 WAR is kind of what I would expect from him. And that's just because those slumps will, bring it down a bit. And he's really only going to get hits. He's only really going to get opportunities against right-handed pitching. But I still think he can be a 2 WAR guy, even in those limited scenarios. People are wondering, can you trade Alexis Diaz? What are you going to get for him if you do? I don't love the prospects of that.
All right, let's take a couple together here. First, I'm going to go with Bob Joy saying, is Alexis Diaz a trade piece? Followed up by Carrie saying, if my clicker will work, trade Diaz to the Phillies. They lost their closer. The problem here is you could trade Alexis Diaz for almost absolutely nothing. This would be one of those deals where you would be doing 2 players, getting change of scenery trades. That's the best the Reds could hope for right now. Alexis Diaz doesn't have any more value than that right now.
What about this? Because I was kind of thinking about this at the game yesterday. If the Reds were to trade Alexis Diaz to the Phillies or to anybody, there's a really good chance that fan base of that team looks it up and says, man, he's had some elite stuff in the past. He could be a legit closer option for us. And we'd be really excited about that trade. And very likely the Reds get hardly anything in return, if anything at all. Would that be like the Reds doing their own version of the Taylor Rogers thing? Although Taylor Rogers did have a nice, came in, got the lefty out yesterday against the Guardians. But I just kind of feel like the Giants knew something about Taylor Rogers before they gave him away. And we were super excited about the Reds acquiring him. I think if the Reds were to trade Alexis Diaz right now, that other team would be really excited, and Reds fans would be sitting back here like, yeah, bet you're excited. Uh-huh.
It does actually. That's a pretty good comparison, actually. I think that's fair because I'm pretty sure that's the Giants. The Giants front office was just on social media going, for the love of God, be quiet until we get this deal finalized. Just shh. Shh. Don't tell Nick Kroll.
And like Taylor Rogers didn't lose the strike zone like Alexis Diaz has lost the strike zone before he was traded, but it feels like they had some sort of inkling that something was coming. And I get it. There's probably people right now that are looking at Taylor Rogers' ERA and going, how are you worried about this? But it's everything else that he has done that makes me worry that a blow up is coming with him. And does it happen in a moment? Like, does it happen against the Cubs? Like, that's going to be really rough if that sort of thing happens. But my comparison is like, I've also had some other folks ask me about this. Like, do you think the Reds could trade Alexis Diaz? I'm like, yes, they could trade him, but they are not getting back anything of consequence right now. I think their best course of action is just to hope that he figures it back out and is able to be a piece for them the rest of the season at some point. I don't know when he would get the chance to prove that, but again, a lot of this is just hope. There's literally nothing but hope when it comes to Alexis Diaz at the moment.
Isn't Sam Mull in AAA?
On rehab,
says.
yeah.
He's on rehab right now. How far away are we thinking? Another week on Sam Mull?
I wouldn't be surprised if we saw him get called up next couple of days, especially if they once again have to dip into the bullpen today. Hopefully not with Nick Lodolo pitching, but it feels like Terry Francona went like balls to the wall trying to win that, trying to sweep that series, which credit to him, it worked. And love to see it. I'm not complaining about that. But based on how he used his bullpen this weekend, I've got to believe that neither of Pagan, Santillan, or Graham Ashcraft are available tonight. And it still might even be a question about tomorrow. So we could see Sam Mull or Ian Jabot up here this week.
Miss Nikita asking, you answered about Mull. What do we know about Ian Jabot? I need Ian Jabot available and on this team, I guess, just so that I can pull a jersey that fits me in a grab bag. But that's,
well, you can always get the opening day jersey. I'm sure that's available.
You're going to get kicked off the stream. That's what's going to happen today. I'm just going to boot you.
But no, he had a scoreless outing, I believe it was yesterday for Louisville. And of course, all minor leagues are off on Monday, so he's not going to pitch today. But he's looking like he's getting ready to return here. So we should be seeing him soon. There's probably going to be like one of those phantom IL stints for somebody to get I'm thinking maybe Scott Barlow, because dude's pitched that a million times.
And this, because this is a reasonable point from E4, Mull replacing Taylor Rogers. And Mull replacing Rogers definitely makes the A group a little bit better, because I think Mull would be at the back end of the A group, or the bridge guy from the B group to the A group, like right in that lane, right?
I think an in-shape Sam Mull is part of the A group. We mentioned that coming through spring training, he was not in shape, and there was some worry that he wouldn't even make the opening day roster because of his physical, his physical readiness.
Did not come ready to play.
Didn't happen, and then he looked bad to start the season. And so I think now part of his IL stint was, all right, you got to get fit and you got to get ready to go because we need you. And I think he's pretty much there. So I would like to see that. That could be the way of managing around a potential Taylor Rogers blow up. And then you put Taylor Rogers on the IL for, sore, whatever. And then he kind of figures a few things out and comes back looking more like the old Taylor Rogers and not this guy that we've seen for the first month and a half of the season.
Adrian would like you to know, Jeff, that Yasiel Puig just got released by his KBO team. So there's an outfielder that's available.
Yasiel Puig or Connor Joe right now? Who are you taking?
Yeah, Connor Joe.
I think so.
God.
As much as we loved
it,
and I don't want to be like that guy when it comes to the Yasiel Puig, but as much as we loved him as a Red, he was just okay. Like, he had a 93 OPS plus. It's not like he did what Nick Castellanos did in 2021. It's kind of what I want to like. I feel like a lot of people think of Yasiel Puig and Nick Castellanos in the same vein, but Yasiel Puig was vibes. Nick Castellanos was performance.
And, and the thing with Puig was, he was fun. He was fiery. He took on the whole Pittsburgh Pirates team with that great photo of him dragging Tucker Barnhart along the ground as they're fighting it out. Him scrapping after he's already been traded. He's still out there fighting with the team. Those are the Yasiel Puig memories. I don't have very many memories of him doing in-game stuff that got me super excited. I have a lot of memories of him doing stuff
homers, but
outside of the game that got me excited. But
he had 22 homers, but at the same time, the other point to this as well with Puig, and we'll jump off this because I know this was a little bit more of a sarcastic comment, but he hasn't played since 2019. So
right. If you get to go get one outfielder right now, Jeff, who is it? Who's your dream target? Who do you want him to go get?
Like, regardless of availability,
realistic. Let's make this realistic.
Okay. Realistically, it's Luis Robert.
Okay.
I still don't know if Baltimore is thinking that they're going to sell. They got new owners. It's not the same owner. So it's like, the last owner, it was like if they were out of playoff contention, they were like, fine, whatever, trade whatever you can trade. I don't see that happening necessarily. So Cedric Mullins might be a possibility, but I think I'd rather have Luis Robert than Cedric Mullins.
So Mullins is my answer, and I think Baltimore, the ownership might be willing to do some things and then try and buy their way.
They do have a lot of outfield concepts.
Buy their way into catching up. Yeah. I Mullins is my answer.
And almost would you? Okay, so let's do this real quick. And I don't know how much you know about this guy, but if it was Cedric Mullins or if it was Colton Cowser, because I'd take Colton Cowser all day.
I don't know much about Colton Cowser.
Colton Cowser's their younger guy. He just came up last year, but he is uber talented. Like, I don't think he's on the same level as Gunnar Henderson, but he's very, very talented. But he's more of a prove-it guy. Cedric Mullins is more of a veteran who has proved it.
No. See, and I can answer that because I don't know much about Cowser, but this I know. Whatever the Reds do right now has to have impact, and I have to know that it's going to have impact. So for me, I would go get Mullins because I know he's going to have an impact. Does that make sense? Like I'm done with hope as a strategy, and please, for the love of God, just go get me somebody I can rely on. That's really and thus tells you the story of being a Cincinnati Reds fan, because the benchmark is, for the love of God, get me somebody that I can rely on.
Yeah.
And we're in with this, Jeff. When will Tim join the show? We should do that. We should make that happen here coming up. We'll check on his availability the next couple Mondays and have him drop by.
That'll work.
All right, get us out of here.
All right. Thanks, everybody, so much for checking out today's live show and being a part of the comment section. I know everybody's been super active. Really appreciate that. Make sure that you subscribe. If you're not subscribed, hit that subscribe button here on YouTube and on your favorite podcast apps. We're on all of them out there. So if you can't watch us on YouTube, you can always listen to us on your favorite podcasting app. And make sure that you check us out tomorrow. We will be talking more about Hunter Green. Coming back on Friday, we'll talk more about the pitching replacements that we should be seeing here soon. And hopefully we'll be talking about a win up in Pittsburgh. Until then, though, you can always trust that Steve and I will be Locked On Reds every single day.
Chew, my God.
Chew.